Hello and welcome to day 25 of Business English 1. This week we're going to be talking about presentation structure. Now, obviously you've already done a few presentations this semester. You did a self-introduction where you recorded yourself talking about you and your life and your goals, dreams, hobbies, activities. And that was great because it gave you an opportunity to get to know each other. Then we did the show and tell presentations, and again that was pretty formal, where you just had an object, an item that you showed to the class. You explained it to us, you told us about it, but that was again a pretty short presentation and pretty informal. In Boom Diata, we worked a lot on pronunciation and enunciation. We talked about syllables and rhyming. We talked about the red leather and yellow leather, really focusing on your pronunciation, and also having sufficient volume, so sort of projecting your voices so everybody could hear you and speaking very clearly. With that, you obviously had a lot of teamwork that had to go into that, and you did a lot with visual aids, which was a really important part of the Boom Diata presentation. So it used some of the elements, some of the things that you will be using throughout your life when you do other types of presentations, whether it's for this class, another class, when you get a job, you work at a company, whatever you do, having some of those skills to be able to talk in front of an audience, to be able to create some visual aids, to speak clearly, those are all very important skills. Then you did your demonstrations, where it was more about sequencing, doing things in a particular order, explaining things clearly. So now for your final presentation, this one will be more formal. And so we're going to follow a more structured, a more rigid, a more defined presentation structure. Along with that, you will also need to explain things clearly, to enunciate well and pronounce things correctly, and you'll also need to create visual aids. And just like Boom Diata, you'll be working in groups, so teamwork and strategy and planning will all be an important part of that. One word about the teamwork in this class. I know in Korean society, Korean culture, age has a lot, and I know a lot of times, from what I've heard, when there's a group project, whether in a class or at the office, a lot of times the oldest person will just tell everybody else what to do, and they don't actually do any work. But that's not how I want you to do this. Okay, in this class, in basically in English-speaking cultures, I'd say, we don't focus on age so much. Yes, I mean we do believe in respecting our elders and treating older people with respect, but that doesn't give them like automatic power, or that doesn't mean that we must do whatever they say, especially I would say especially with people like closer to our own age. And most of you guys are within just a few years of each other. So in Western society, Western culture, the age difference there does not matter. So in this class, I don't care if you're a senior or if you're a freshman. I don't care if you're graduating right now, or if you're just starting out. I don't care what year you were born. That is not important. In this presentation, you are all equals. You must all share the work equally. There's no boss who tells everybody else what to do and doesn't do any work themselves. Okay? So just keep that in mind. You need to all do your fair share of the work in this presentation. Okay? And this will be more structured than your other presentations. So that's what we're going to work on this week and next week. So, basic presentation structure. There are 3 parts. In almost any presentation, the basic idea is that you have an introduction. And the introduction should grab the audience's attention, state the presentation's topic and purpose, and briefly outline the main points to be discussed. So we give a little overview there. Then in step 2, the body of the presentation should examine each main point in detail by providing support and evidence, examples, statistics, evidence and support for what you're talking about. And in part 3, the conclusion should restate the presentation's topic, which is very simple to do, summarize the main points, and be memorable. You want something, hopefully, that the audience will remember when you're finished. So notice here in the first part, you outline the main points. We could call that an overview or a preview. And then in the conclusion, you summarize it. So we could call that a summary or a review. Kind of review the main points. So preview before and review after. Okay, so let's take a look at this in more detail. So a presentation has 3 basic parts. This is the entire presentation. There are 3 basic parts. We have the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Okay, and you know that from reading the textbook. In the introduction, you want to say what you're going to say. That is this overview or preview. You tell the audience what you're going to say. Then in the body of the presentation, you say it. In the conclusion, you want to summarize or review that, so you say what you said. So notice here, say what you're going to say, that's future tense. You haven't done it yet. This is the introduction. Then you say it, and then in the conclusion, you say what you said. You review it or summarize it. So these are the 3 basic parts. So everybody repeat that. Say what you're going to say it, say what you said. Say what you're going to say it, say what you said. Repeat it again. Say what you're going to say it, say what you said. Now, why do we do this 3 times? Why is there so much repetition? Well, if you hear something only one time, how likely are you to remember it? You may forget it very easily. If you hear it twice, your chances go up. If you hear something 3 times, your chances of remembering it go up significantly. That's why your mom tells you to clean your room 1,000 times. Because if she just tells you once or twice, you won't remember. You'll forget. But if she tells you every day, or if she tells you 100 times, maybe you'll remember it. So, the same thing in a presentation. We need to tell people more than once, or else they may forget. And people get easily distracted. They look at their phone, they stare out the window, They whisper something to their neighbor. They're thinking about what they need to do later, or they're thinking about what they're going to have for dinner, or sometimes they fall asleep. So it's important to have this repetition. That way, if somebody misses something, if they fall asleep or they get distracted by something, hopefully with this repetition, they can still hear it at some point during your presentation. So in the introduction, you want to start off really strong, and you want to make a good first impression. So you may feel kind of like the guy here looking in the mirror, not too strong, and you may feel like this little kitty cat here. But this is the impression you want to make, that you're strong, that you're prepared, that you're a fighter. You want to make a good first impression with your audience and grab the audience's attention early in your presentation. So the introduction of a presentation has 5 main parts, 5 sections. Okay, now this is just the introduction. Remember, a presentation has 3 parts: introduction, body, conclusion. Right now we're going to look at the introduction. In the introduction there are 5 pieces, 5 sections. I'll just show them to you here real quick, and then we'll talk about them in more detail. Greet the audience, hook the audience, state your topic, explain your reason, and give an overview. So first of all, you want to greet the audience. How do you do that? It's pretty simple. In the greeting, the idea here is you're doing one important thing. You're telling the audience that you are ready to speak, so they should be quiet and listen. On a video, the audience already kind of does that for themselves. When they hit play, they know that you're ready to speak. But when you're in a classroom or a larger room or a meeting, you want some way to tell the audience, hey, everybody, I'm going to start my presentation. And you want to do it in a polite way. You can't just say, hey, everybody shut up, I'm going to talk right now. Okay, you can't do that. That's kind of rude. Okay? So this is very simple. You can just say hello, or good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, depending on what time of day it is, or nice to meet you. Oh wait, why did that turn red? Why did that turn red? Is that something that you should say in a presentation? Probably not. Why? Well, when do we say nice to meet you? Or it's nice to meet you? When do we use that expression? We normally only say that when we meet somebody for the very first time. And so if you're presenting to a group of people that you've never met before, you could say that. It's still a little awkward because you haven't individually met each person. So I probably would not say that, I don't think. But especially in a class like this where you've met everybody, at least online, it just sounds awkward to say that. We don't, if you meet somebody, oh, I'm John, what's your name? And, oh, it's nice to meet you. If you see them a few days later, oh, hey, what's your name? Oh, I'm John, it's nice to meet you. They'll think you're strange if you keep saying it's nice to meet you. So we don't want to do that every time. So let's take that one off. Now, when you're doing the greeting, you want to think about your audience. Consider who they are, what their experiences are, what their interests are, maybe what their expectations are. So let's say you're going to talk to a group of middle-aged adults interested in retirement planning, which some of you may be doing, helping people prepare for the future. So, first of all, what's middle-aged mean? How old is a middle-aged person? 30? You might think so now that, 30 is so old, but no, it's not. 40, no. If you call somebody 40 middle-aged, they'll probably feel kind of offended. 50s, yeah, that's middle-aged. 50s, 60s, even maybe a little more than middle-aged. Okay, but somebody who's in their 40s, maybe late 40s. Okay, but people are very sensitive about their age, so you want to be careful with that. So if you're going to talk to a group of middle-aged people about retirement planning, would you do it like this? Yo, 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 what's up, my people? My name be DJ Fuzz. I'm going to be a banker, you dig it? Is that how you'd say it? No, I'll probably think you're crazy if you do that. Okay, that's way too casual. Now, if you're at a K-pop concert and you're greeting the audience and you're a rapper, then yeah, this works. But not for retirement planning for middle-aged people. Okay, so you'd want something more professional than this. Maybe something like this. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hong Gildong, and I'm a global finance and banking major at Inha University. In the greeting here, we have 3 parts. The greeting itself, your name, and your credentials. So, presentation has 3 parts. Introduction, body, conclusion. Let me just start building this over here. So in a presentation, you've got the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. In the introduction, there are 5 pieces. The greeting, the hook, the topic, the reason, and the overview. Okay? In the greeting, there are 3 parts. The greeting itself, your name, and your credentials. Greeting, name, and credentials. This will be a group presentation for you guys, so names, plural here. What are credentials, though? Your credentials are like your qualifications. What qualifies you? What sort of authorizes you to do this presentation? What authority, what training, what education, what expertise do you have? Why should they believe you? Why should they listen to you? Why should they trust you? Okay? So let's look at a better example here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. That's the greeting. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Name? My name is Hong Gildong. Credentials? And I'm a global finance and banking major at Inha University. Now, are these good credentials? Well, yeah, if you're talking to people about retirement planning, then being a finance and banking major, that should qualify you. that should give you some training, some skills, some knowledge to talk about something like that. Now, if we look at some other topics here, a history of modern Korea, how to become a dancer, why a college degree is necessary, Hangul, how to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend, your favorite singer, the qualities of a good teacher, your dream vacation, what is happiness, the benefits of regular exercise. A lot of different topics here. For each of these, if you were doing one of these topics, you would want to think about your credentials. What kind of qualifies you, or what skills or expertise do you have that the audience should trust you? For example, this one's always more fun to do in class, but for example, if you wanted to talk about how to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, think about yourself. Do you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Do you have experience dating? If you don't, if you've never dated anyone, if you've never had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, would you be qualified to talk about how to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend? If you compare that to somebody who is in a relationship, maybe somebody who has dated several people, they have found several boyfriends or girlfriends, who would be more qualified to give that presentation? Possibly both. Now, a person who has real life experience with relationships, finding a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you think, oh yeah, I can trust them. But maybe even someone who hasn't done it themselves, but they've had some education, some training, some classes about relationships, perhaps they could do it just as well. Okay? But think about you and your qualifications to talk about your topic. So always consider your audience, and then when you do your greeting, you want to have your topic, think about your audience, and then in your greeting, remember to have the greeting itself, your name, and your credentials. Okay? Now, imagine that this is your audience, these fish. What do you need? How do you get their attention? How do you get them to listen to you? Some of you might say, well, throw some food in the water, right? Throw some bait in there. Some worms or little chopped up fish or bread or something. That might look like a good idea. But if you throw some food in the water, the fish will quickly swim. They'll eat all the food. And then what? They just swim away. They're not going to talk to you or listen to you. So how do you get them to really follow you? How do you really grab their attention? You need a hook. You need to hook them to grab their attention and say, hey, fish, come here, listen to me. I want to talk to you. So, first of all, you've got the greeting, and then you've got the hook. You need to hook the audience. When you interview for a job, the employer's decision on whether or not you're going to get the job is usually made in the first 2 minutes. It's usually a pretty quick decision. Sometimes within the first few seconds, they know if they like you or not, if they're interested in you or not. So first impressions are really important. They really count. Now, can first impressions be wrong? Absolutely. They can be wrong. One of my best friends, maybe my best friend, When we first met, he did not like me. Before we met, he didn't like me because it was at college, and I was already living in the dormitory before he arrived, and other people who had met me were kind of talking about me and saying things about me, and he already did not like me before we ever met. But we ended up becoming best friends. So first impression was not very good. But as we got to know each other, it got much better. That can also work in the opposite direction. Somebody may have a very, very good first impression, but then later realize that it's not good, okay, or that they hired the wrong person. So first impressions, we use them, we depend on them, but they're not very reliable or accurate sometimes. From the moment you appear in front of your audience for a presentation, it has begun, whether you are speaking or not. So if you show up at a meeting, a workshop, a seminar, a presentation somewhere, and you are looking very nervous or unprepared, you're searching for your materials, the audience sees that even before you start. So if you look nervous, if you look unprepared, if you look like you're struggling, the audience will see that because your presentation has already started, even if you're not actually speaking yet. So it's important to grab the audience's attention at the beginning while they're still forming their opinion and make a positive first impression. Make a good first impression. If you don't get their attention right away, you may never get it. And I'm struggling with that this semester with online courses because I can't see your reactions. I can't see your faces. I can't see if you're following along or understanding. And I realize that these online videos are probably not the most exciting things to watch. This isn't a Hollywood production. I don't have special effects and background music and amazing scenery. So this is a different format, obviously. An online lecture is not a Hollywood production. So, and I realized that these may not be the most exciting things. The advantage with a recording like this is that you can go back and review and watch things again if you do mess up. So you do need a hook. Starting off with a bang will be the first step in establishing yourself as an interesting, knowledgeable speaker with something important to say. Starting off with a bang means starting off strong, starting off very well, making a great first impression. So, how do hooks work? Well, there's several different ways to do it, and let's look at a few examples. One is a popular misconception. Popular means that many people believe it, but a misconception means that they believe it, but it's something that's actually not true. So to use this as a hook, you would tell the audience what the popular misconception is, and then give them the correct information. You could have an interesting or shocking fact or statistic, something surprising to tell the audience. You could use a quote from a book, a movie, a famous person, an interview. But it doesn't have to be a famous person. A quote could be something that your mom always said or one of your teachers always taught you. So, but a quote from a song, a poem, a movie, a book, anything. An anecdote. An anecdote's a story that has a point. And the idea here is that all of these, whether it's the misconception, a quote, an anecdote, these all are related to your topic. You're using these to introduce your topic in an interesting way. Another one is a rhetorical question. Rhetorical question. What is a rhetorical question? Well, a rhetorical question is a question that you ask that you don't need or even expect an answer for. So, for example, parents are really good at asking rhetorical questions. For example, if you are sitting around all day playing video games or watching TV, and you haven't done any work at the house, or you haven't studied, you haven't done anything, and your mom says, "Are you lazy?" Should you answer that question? Do you need to answer that question? No. Of course not. Your mom already has decided. She already knows what the answer is in her mind, right? You're lazy. You don't need to say, "Well, no, Mom, I'm not really lazy. I'm just taking a break. I'm resting today." That's not the answer she wants. So in that case, it's really a rhetorical question. She does not want or need an answer. Are you lazy? Yes, you are. Okay. But the idea again is that all of these must be related to your topic. So there's some examples here about William Shakespeare and the Korean War. Let me just run through some of these quickly. A popular misconception: William Shakespeare's birthday is observed on April 23rd. Observed, that's when it's celebrated. But in reality, his actual birth date remains a mystery. We don't know when he was born. We don't know his real date of birth. An interesting fact: having written 38 plays and 154 sonnets, William Shakespeare's works have been translated into every major language. Have they been translated into Korean? I think so. And his plays have been performed more often than any other playwrights. Playwright here, W-R-I-G-H-T. That's how we spell a person. That's the word for a person who writes plays. A playwright. That's amazing. That in all these years, since, even after his death, his works have still been performed more than anyone else's. That's pretty impressive. Quote: "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages." William Shakespeare wrote these poignant words nearly 400 years ago. So this is using a really famous quote from one of his plays. Or an anecdote. A story. Although we do not know which companies William Shakespeare wrote his plays for, by the early 1590s his plays were performed by his own company, the theater. What's interesting is that at some point his company had a disagreement with the landlord. The landlord is like the property owner. So the company leveled the theater. They leveled it. They flattened it. They tore it down. They destroyed the building and used its remnants, its pieces, to build the Globe Theater, which is, of course, the most famous theater in the world. So they actually tore down the other theater, used the pieces from it to build the Globe, which is really, really famous. Or a rhetorical question: which English poet and playwright is commonly referred to as the Bard of Avon? Now, you don't need to, if you're in the audience, you don't need to shout out, "Oh, William Shakespeare!" It's a rhetorical question. You don't need to answer it because they're going to give you the answer. Okay, now a little bit about rhetorical questions. A lot of students like to use these, and they can be great, but you don't just want a simple yes or no question. Okay, a rhetorical question, the purpose, the design is to get you to think, is to get you interested in the topic and thinking about the topic, but you don't actually have to give an answer. Okay, so for example, if I said, if I just asked, my bottle is disappearing here, do you like water? Yes or no? So the audience in their mind just says yes or no, and they're done. Their interest is now gone. So a simple yes or no question is not a good rhetorical question. It's not a rhetorical question. So for a rhetorical question, you want something that will make the audience think. So for example, you could say, have you ever wondered how many living organisms are in a bottle of water? Wait, what? Living organisms? What do you mean? You mean like bacteria? Amoeba? Viruses? Coronavirus? Is it safe to drink? So then you get the audience actually thinking about your topic. You get them interested in it. So if you use a rhetorical question, make sure that it's actually a rhetorical question. Something that will make the audience think a little bit. Not just a simple yes or no question. Okay? So remember, the hook must be both interesting and relevant. Be creative. Use your imagination. Okay? I've given you a few examples of ways to use hooks here, but there are other ways you can do it. Okay? Use your imagination. You're not limited to these types. Okay, so I've got a little, there's a little exercise sheet here. It says, practice making your own hooks with these topics. So this is about university life. All of you are in university. So if you were going to give a presentation on your university life, how could you introduce that? How could you grab the audience's attention? Would you talk about a popular misconception? Or maybe an interesting fact about university life? Maybe a quote? Or an anecdote, a story? It could be a true story, it could be a funny story. It doesn't even have to be a true story. Or a rhetorical question. So I'd like you to write one hook, at least one hook, about university life, okay, using one of these methods, all right? And that is your attendance check for today. Okay, so your attendance check is to write a hook for a presentation about your university life. Okay? That is your attendance check today. Okay, let's move on. So we've talked about the greeting, the hook. The next one is very simple. State your topic. This is where you simply tell the audience what your topic is. I'm going to use a few different examples here. Today, I'll tell you about my trip to China. Today, I would like to tell you about my favorite season. This afternoon, I'm going to tell you why I decided to study finance and banking at university. So notice these are three different topics, okay? I'm going to use these this week to talk about these different sections, to talk about the presentation structure. And I've done a little color coding here. So the one about China will be in blue, the one about my favorite season will be in green, and the one about studying finance and banking is obviously in orange. So that's why these are 3 different presentation topics, and I'll be using these for examples over the next couple of days. Okay, so we've got the greeting, the hook, topic, and now we need the reason. Why are you presenting this topic? And this tells why your topic is important. Not to you as a speaker, but what it will do for your audience, how it will help your audience, what the audience will learn from it. Okay? For example, this information will be helpful if you decide to travel around China. Okay, that's the reason. The topic is, today I'll tell you about my trip to China. So if you say, today I'm going to tell you about my trip to China, this information will be helpful if you decide to travel around China. It gives the audience a reason to listen. It tells why it's useful or important for the audience. Or this presentation will help you understand why I love spring so much. If you're going to talk about your favorite season. Or after listening to my presentation, you'll understand more about what finance is and how it affects your life. That's if you're talking about why you decided to study finance and banking at university. So you'll notice on all of these slides, it gave the reason first and then the topic. I left that in there. I realized it was doing it wrong. I rearranged the slides, or I used to do it all on one slide, and I separated it so that I could put the topic together with the reason. And then the animation on the slide kind of reversed the order on these from what I originally wanted. I left it there just as a reminder. Make sure you check your slides so that you don't accidentally do things like that, that the order of things appearing does not become backwards or messed up somehow. Okay, so just an example of what not to do. Now, there's also another error on this slide. Not just the order that things appeared, but there's an actual error on the slide. Can you find it? If you want to pause the video for a minute and look, that might be helpful. If you find it, it's down here. How it affects your life. Effects is a noun. The verb form would be affects with an A at the beginning. Affects. This is the verb. Okay. So, again, that was a mistake that was in the original slide, but I left it there as a little teaching opportunity. Okay, so we've got the greeting, the hook, topic, the reason, and then the overview. In the overview, this tells your audience how many main points you have and what they are. This is sort of a roadmap for your audience, so they know where you're going and they're prepared to follow along with you. And this can actually help motivate the audience to listen to you. If you say, oh, I'm going to talk about this, this, and this, your audience may say, oh, I want to hear about that. I'm interested in that. That sounds like something I could use. Okay, so it can help motivate them to encourage them to actually listen to you. Okay, so in a presentation, we have the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. In the introduction, we have 5 parts. The greeting. In the greeting, there's 3 pieces. What are they? Greeting itself, names, credentials, Then we have the hook, a rhetorical question, a shocking fact, a surprising statistic, an anecdote, okay? Then you state your topic. What are you talking about? And a reason. Why should the audience care about your presentation? What will the audience learn from your presentation? How will your presentation help the audience? And then the overview. How many sections are there? What are the main ideas that you're going to be talking about? Okay, so I want to show you a video today, another one from Sangyungwan, with a girl who is giving a presentation. And I will just go ahead and play the entire video for you. But I want you to really focus on the introduction. Does she have all of the elements, all of the pieces of the introduction? Does she have a greeting? Does it have the greeting itself, her name, credentials? Does she introduce, does she have a hook? If she does, what kind of hook does she use? Does she introduce her topic? Does she give us a reason for the presentation? What will it do for the audience? And does she give an overview? If she does, how many main ideas are there? And what are they? Okay, so let's listen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ring Zhang. To get started, I'd like to ask you a question. Which border between two countries is the most heavily militarized border in the world? You might think it is the border between Israel and the West Bank, but it is not. Actually, it is a demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. Today, I'd like to tell you why South Korea is an important focal point in the world. By the end of this presentation, you will have a much better understanding of this vital yet often overlooked country. My talk will be divided into 3 parts: geographical location, economic strengths, and technological advances. Now let's begin. Korea has a very significant geographic position.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. I'll send you the video file so you can watch the entire thing. But I'll stop it there for today. Answer the question. Does she have all of the parts, all of the necessary parts of the introduction? The greeting, the hook, the topic, reason, and overview. Okay. Then, of course, she'll move into the body of her presentation. And I will upload the video for you. It will be better quality than doing it through the recording here. I'll upload that for you so you can watch it. And then we will continue talking about that in our next class. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.